Hi, this is Eric Rawls of Cosmoverse.com, and you're listening to Rob McConnell in the X Zone.
Hi, this is Blade Runner, and you are listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Hi, I'm Laura Sabrin of Sister Fields Organic Vineyard in Jordan, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Hi, my name is Lady Ashley, the White Witch of Niagara-on-the-Lake, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal talk radio show, The X Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Welcome to The X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and around the world on the Starcom Radio Network. Don't forget, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m., my pal, my friend, my colleague, the one and only Ed Till, the legendary Ed Till, is on Starcom Monday through Friday. Check him out at www.starcomradionetwork.com. My guest this hour, Exonation, is Stu Bundy. He is the National Deputy Director for MUFON. That's the Mutual UFO Network up here in Canada. And we're going to be discussing UFO sightings in Canada. Joining me now from Toronto is Stu Bundy. Stu, welcome to the X Zone.
Thanks, Rob. It's great to be here.
Stu, tell us a little bit about yourself and what it was that propelled you into the world of ufology.
Well, what propelled me into MUFON was an incident that happened to me back in 2000. Since I was a young kid, I was always fascinated with the phenomenon and the subject, and so I was always into it and studying it. But what happened in 2000 was really interesting, and it goes to show what can happen because I couldn't sleep one night. I'm lying on the couch, 2:36 in the morning. Through the shades, I see this extremely bright light hovering above the tree line. And I live on a golf course, so it was across the fairway, and it was up and down, back and forth. And I jump up. I say, well, "What the heck is that?" It is super bright. So I run upstairs. Wake up my wife, grab the binoculars. We're watching this thing from the upstairs window, and we don't know. This is really something crazy. We're feeling weird and everything. All the things you hear that people describe, the feelings and sensations when you see something you really can't explain. So the next day, I call the police. I call the local airport. I call a local radio show that used to have a UFO show on in Toronto every Sunday called Strange Days. Indeed, I'm not sure if you remember that show or not.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Bruce Errol Knapp, I think his name, used to run it, and so I called up and I said, I saw this thing. Has anyone else called it? Has anyone else seen something like this? And they said, no, but why don't you come on, next Sunday and tell us about your sighting? I said, sure, absolutely. So the week goes by, and the morning that I'm supposed to go on this show, the local cops call me back, and they say that there was a break-in at the golf course clubhouse at 2:36 in the morning, and we had this chopper there with its million, bulb watt searchlight, and that's what it was, and it was, and then it was giving support to a rollover. Some drunk was in the ditch and it was going back and forth up and down the highway. And I said, okay, well, thank you very much, officers. So I called up the golf course because, I'm a little bit skeptical.
Sure.
And I said, anything happened to you guys on the weekend? Oh, yeah, we had this break-in, late Saturday night, and, cops were here, this chopper was here, and so there you have it. They solved my mystery. But by then, I'd already joined MUFON, and I was already on my way down the road to wanting to investigate these further because I really believe there is something out there, and I wanted to sort of get into it more. And so I haven't looked back, and we've had some pretty interesting sightings over the years, and it's a lot of fun. But for us, it's we're a volunteer organization. Nobody gets paid. It's sort of a labor of love. People come and go in the organization, but it's truly people who really want to get into it a little bit more. People want to feel like they're insiders, get firsthand knowledge and sort of the first alert. And so it's in that way it's pretty cool.
Where, in your opinion, as the Deputy National Director of MUFON for Canada, are the most UFO sightings in Canada?
Well, I can tell you, the stats are it's Ontario, and it's out in British Columbia, Alberta, Quebec, Maritimes, which encompass New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, Newfoundland,
Labrador.
But Labrador, absolutely. But Ontario has twice as many sightings as anywhere in Canada. That might be because of the density of the population.
Right. But could it also be? Could it also be because of the density of the air traffic over the areas in Toronto? Because we're so close to, let's see, Toronto. We have Pearson International. We have Niagara on the Lake. We have Buffalo, Niagara Regional Airport. There's a lot of air traffic coming in and out of this area. Does that play a part in the sightings that people look up in the sky? They see the aircraft landing lights. The atmospheric conditions can play havoc on the landing lights as well as the navigational lights. Does this play into the mix?
Yes, absolutely, and throw in London, Ontario Airport, Billy Bishop, which is the island airport, Buttonville up north. Absolutely,
yeah.
It does certainly. And what we do in MUFON is when we train field investigators, and this is a big pitch for anyone out there who wants to get involved. We would love to have you. We train you. It's not a formal CSI training, so it's not a year at the FBI school or anything like that. It's you train at home, and we train you, and then you go out there and we give you cases. You contact the witnesses and you try and solve them. But what we do is we'll take four basic things. Number one, air traffic, as you just mentioned. We have Flight Radar 24, Air Tracker. These are a couple of websites where you can actually go on there, punch in where you are, and you can see what's in the sky. It'll tell you the flight number, Air Canada 2511, for example. It's a 320. It'll tell you what kind of aircraft, all that sort of stuff, where exactly it is. Is it coming? Is it going? And that really helps as well. And you can go back in time. So if someone had sent in the sighting report 11 o'clock last night, exactly where it is, what direction, you can go and check. First of all, do you think it's an aircraft? Number two, we'll go to a weather website, for example, Wonderground, and we can go back in time again and punch up all the weather stats. Which way was the wind blowing? That's a huge one. That's really one of the first ones we look for, because can we rule out a Chinese lantern? We're getting a lot of those now. Is it going against the wind? That's a biggie for us. And then the credibility of the witness. There was not a cloud in the sky, and we go back to that day. It was cloudy and rainy. So then we go back to the witness. Maybe they had their dates mixed up. Things like that. So we check the weather in Wonderground. We also use software like Stellarium. And that's free software you can download, and it tells you exactly where all the stars are, where the planets are. And then with another button on that software, it'll tell you where all the satellites are and the ISS. And that's huge. That's probably one of our most important tools, because as everyone has seen the International Space Station go by, boy, it's fast and it is bright. And typically in my area, when it does go over and it's a nice clear night, we'll have a couple of sighting reports come in the next morning. The other thing we really look for is photos, videos, and multiple witnesses. So, for example, we had this really, really strong case last summer in a place called Penetanguishene, right up near, cottage country up north. And what it was is this couple came home from dinner, It was 11 o'clock at night. Let their dog out the back door. It starts barking. It starts going crazy. The couple, jump out the back door, and in their backyard, or just beyond their backyard, hovering, is a large object 20 feet across. It's glowing, and it makes one circle of their house, makes a bigger circle of the neighborhood, and then takes off on a 45-degree angle up into the atmosphere. Needless to say, they were freaked. So they sent in their report. I was the one who actually did that one. I contacted the folks, and they were quite credible. The fellow used to be a hockey player. He's a local mason. Very credible. Didn't detect anything. And right after speaking with them, boom, we get another one from right around the corner. This is a woman who had seen something very similar, and was also very shaken. So that was great. That was 2 separate witnesses from the same area, and that's the sort of thing we look for. So, I contact the local police. They tell me I need to go, and probably what it was is a first responding helicopter or aircraft, because they're on the water, to a maybe it was a distress on the water. And I was like, well, no, this wasn't. It was in a fellow's backyard. So they sent me to CFB Trenton, which is an Air Force base. I spoke to one of the captains there, and they said, no, we didn't scramble anything. It wasn't us. Go back to your local police. I went back to the local police. They kept giving me the runaround. No. You got to call the Air Force back again. So this went back and forth, and that was a classic runaround. So either they didn't want to listen to us, or they had something, they knew something that they weren't telling us. But that was a really big one, and that was classified and filed as an unknown UAV.
How many UFO reports does MUFON Canada get on average a year?
Last year was around 500.
Mm-hmm.
And it is steadily increased. What really has shot things up is this is year 2 of the TV show Hangar 1. And that is a MUFON television show, and it's, I believe in Canada it's up here on H2, History Channel 2. And what we're getting, though, from that show is we're getting a lot of folks who have had sightings in the past and have not come forward.
Okay, the show you're talking about, what's the name of the lead investigator?
Well, they have different ones every show, but and sometimes they have Jan Harzan, who is our national executive director. But they have a bunch of different people.
Really?
Can't think of any of their names offhand right now. Thanks.
Well,
thanks, Rob. You stumped me there.
Yeah, no problem. I'll try and do it again. I believe that who's the director of MUFON for Pennsylvania?
Oh, John Ventry. Right. Yes, John's on there a lot.
He's a nut. This guy is a nut. Shortly after Malaysian Air Flight 370 disappeared, he puts out a press release that it was an alien ship that kidnapped the aircraft and the crew and all the passengers.
Yeah, well, John is. I didn't hear that one.
I'll send you a copy of the press release he sent to the media.
Well, that I please do.
Oh,
please
I will.
Do,
yeah.
Because if that's the case, that's not right.
Yeah.
by any means. That's irresponsible.
You know what? I looked at that and I said, no wonder people don't take UFOs seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if he was promoting a book at the time or something like that, but that's irresponsible to unless he was saying it was could possibly be an explanation, which would be a stretch.
Mm-hmm. So
Either way.
So tell me, what do you think is behind the UFO phenomenon?
Well, I believe it's a dual facet. It is actual, alien entities, and I also believe it is American technology. From the reverse engineering from over 50 years of things that have been, going on in the skies. For example, the B-1 bomber and the stealth bomber. They were getting sightings in the 80s up and down in California, Nevada. All these different sightings of these alien craft. It turned out to be the stealth aircraft. But if they have, for example, been reverse engineering all this time, then I truly believe that there are things out there that we can't even imagine. Now, here's an example. We had a mini black triangle flap last summer, and what happened in 1 week in July? It started in Montreal. We got a sighting of a huge black triangle heading west, and almost like down the 401 highway. And then the next day, we got the same sort of sighting report in Burlington, and we got a photo. And so what it was are three lights outlining this triangle, and then we also had the witness supply us with a couple of sketches. 2 days later, in Fort Erie, Ontario, which is right across from Buffalo, two fellows were up on their porch having a smoke. And you know what? God bless all the smokers out there, because majority of our, it's a terrible habit. It's not good for you. I understand that, but a huge percentage of our reports start with, I was outside having a smoke and I looked up, and that's non-smokers look at the feet. So these fellows were outside having smoke, and they literally witnessed a huge black triangle. He said 10 football fields wide, and it was coming under the glide path of the planes landing at Buffalo Airport, and then it disappeared. And the two of them again were shaken up. Now the friend would not come on with us. He would not speak to us on the phone. He would not give us a statement. The other witness, the main witness, would. I went on a local show and talked about it, and he gave us lots of statements, and we did a full report. I contacted the airport, nothing. Nav Canada, Transport Canada, nothing. New York MUFON, we talked with them. They didn't get any reports either. So we've got credible people that are seeing extremely strange things. So I do believe it's sort of a dual facet. It is actual alien craft, and it is human reverse engineering.
Wow,
that's the long answer to that question.
But by the way, my producer just found the article. This is going back to March 11, 2014. Malaysia Flight 370 solved by John Ventry. Although authorities are baffled, the fact is that large aircraft cannot just disappear, or can they? Between black boxes, transponders, radar, debris fields, explosions, and missile strike signatures, evidence is always left behind. The one explanation that hasn't been mentioned by mainstream media is the plane, now listen to this, is the plane and its passengers were abducted by extraterrestrials. This truth has a long history. Number one, December of 1945, 5 bombers from Fort Lauderdale took off and disappeared in cleared weather. A large Martin Mariner was sent to find flight. 19, they also disappeared. 6 planes and 27 crew vanished. Number 2, in 1953, General Benjamin Childlaw said, "We have stacks of flying saucer reports. We take them very seriously when you consider how many men and planes we have lost trying to intercept them." On November the 23rd, 1953, an F-89 Sea Scorpion jet was scrambled from Kinross Air Force Base to intercept a UFO. On radar, the two merge, and the jet and its four-member crew disappears. The U.S. military monitors everything using sonar, radar, and satellites. I'm certain our satellites observed what really happened, but that's a truth that can't be revealed.
Right. So he's saying it's a possibility.
No, what he said here. The one explanation that hasn't been mentioned by mainstream media is that the plane and its passengers were abducted by extraterrestrials.
Yeah, I've got nothing for that.
Yeah.
I've got no comeback because unless he worded it incorrectly, but if he believes and if he is stating that is what he thinks happened, I doubt it very highly. Is it a possibility? Well, I guess anything's a possibility. What I really think happened to that plane is, I believe the U.S. government does know. I believe they probably have the means, whether it was satellite or whatever detections they have, that they know the plane went down. But if you're going to show your hand and say, oh, we've got all this technical stuff that we're able to track anything, anywhere, I don't think they want the rest of their enemies to know, or other countries to know they've got that means.
But that brings up a very interesting point, Stu. How many of these unexplained lights in the sky, these UFO reports that you get, are really top secret aircraft?
Exactly. That's a great question. How many are there? We have 5%, say between 1 and 5 at every 100 sightings that we get and we investigate end up being unknowns. So we can pretty much through 70% of them classify them as IFOs, identified flying objects, and the rest of the 30% typically are information only, which is just sort of a second-hand story, insufficient data where the witnesses will not respond to any questioning, and we really can't come up with any kind of hypothesis or even a best guess. Then there are the hoaxes, which, for example, if you can use a software like Picasa, where you can, or Photoshop, and you can take the photo, get the metadata, which will tell you the camera, the aperture, the speed, that sort of thing. But if you don't get any data, any metadata coming up, well, then the picture has been manipulated. So sometimes it's very easy to see whether or not it's been faked, or it'll even say on it, Photoshop, 2014, December 7th, sort of thing. So we do get hoaxes, and then if we do an investigation where we truly believe that the evidence leads us to an unknown, then we will classify it as an unknown. So I'm probably figuring between 1 to 5% are unknowns, but that still doesn't mean that they aren't some kind of conventional craft. So that's a tough question.
Yeah. We mentioned flight radar before. Does flight radar also give out the information on military aircraft? Because apparently the military uses a different transponder configuration than commercial aircraft, and some are actually stealthed in order to evade radar detection.
Yeah, they don't. That's just commercial craft and FedEx planes, etc. So it doesn't give you any information on the military craft, even though we do have one of our investigators is a real crackerjack, and what he was able to do in one case, for example, up in northern Ontario, these folks sent in a video from their iPhone, and the iPhones are great. We're getting photos and videos, but again, it's hard to a lot of that photo is. And the videos are blurry and not that great. So even though it's great to get it, it sometimes doesn't help much. But what he was able to do is this strange light that was moving around, he was able to figure out and they were blinking lights, the timing of the lights. He was able to figure out what helicopter, what kind of helicopter, what model it was. and that it was the local OPP. And then through some more investigation, he found out that they were busting a grow-op. So that's the sort of thing that they can do with our investigators can do if they get a little bit of information. But obviously, with the lights, with the blinking lights and things like that, and the speed at which they're blinking, they can't figure it out sometimes.
All right, Stu, please stand by. You and I have to take a break at the bottom of the hour. X-Zone Nation. Stu Bundy is our very special guest this hour. He is the the Deputy National Director of MUFON up here in Canada. His website, www.mufoncanada.com. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you around the world on the Starcom Radio Network. If you're not in a city, town, or village that carries our show, and which with Starcom is very rare, just go online, www.starcomradionetwork.com. Stu Bundy and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break. Don't go away. In the world today, most people want what is called the American dream. They want love, a family, a fancy car, and a nice home in a nice neighborhood. They also want a good job and money to travel to interesting places. Life is great because they have the American dream. But what happens to this dream if they hear they have a devastating illness like lung cancer? The doctor may tell them they need treatment immediately or they will be dead in 6 months. He tells them you need surgery and then you need chemotherapy to get better. When they get home, they think of many unanswered questions. They ask themselves, will I survive when so many of my friends with cancer have died? How will I deal with the pain, hair loss, nausea and vomiting, sore mouth and other side effects of chemotherapy and pain of surgery? Will I be able to keep on working? What will happen to my family? Then they look at the internet and wonder, is there a better way to deal with lung cancer and return to my American dream? Carl Helvey can tell you yes, there is a better way. Carl Helvey is a registered nurse with a doctorate in public health and a 38-year lung cancer survivor. Carl was given 6 months to live when diagnosed, and he refused chemotherapy and surgery. Carl used alternative interventions. Those not only helped him overcome lung cancer, but also to remain cancer-free and healthy for over the past 36 years since recovery. In his book, You Can Beat Cancer Using Alternative Integrative Interventions, Dr. Helvey will tell you his story of using all-natural treatments for lung cancer and continuing to work during his treatment. Free of pain and discomfort, Carl will also share how he remained cancer and disease-free since then without chronic illnesses or prescribed medications. His story is supplemented with chapters by Dr. Bernie Siegel, Dr. Francesco Contreras, and Dr. James Forsyth, alternative integrative physicians, and Dr. Kim Dalzell and Tanya Harder-Pierce, health professionals. All have successfully helped others overcome cancer. Research presented by the alternative physicians on their treatments for lung cancer demonstrate a significantly higher long-term survival rate for lung cancer clients than those obtained by conventional doctors. In addition, their clients were free of or had reduced side effects. You Can Beat Lung Cancer Using Alternative Integrative Interventions by Dr. Carl Helvey is now available at all major book outlets and at www.beatlungcancer.net. That's www.beatlungcancer.net. This information may help you return to the American dream.
The Alien Cosmic Expo will be held in Brantford, Ontario, June 26, 27, 28, and will feature 24 internationally acclaimed experts and researchers of UFOs, crop circles, alien abductions, and much more in this 3-day 2015 summer Canadian event. Experts in the field of extraterrestrials and alien encounters, out-of-body experiences, past life regression, soul reading, psychic, and mediumship will all be presented with professionalism, integrity, and credibility, making the Alien Cosmic Expo the largest event of its kind in Canada for 2015. The exhibitor hall will feature a spectacular lineup of gifted mediums, psychics, astrologers, channelers, aura photography, healers, as well as books, DVDs, alternative health products, crystals, jewelry, and much more, completing the venue with something for everyone. For all information and to purchase your tickets for the Alien Cosmic Expo, go to www.aliencosmicexpo.com. That's www.aliencosmicexpo.com.
Hi, this is Ken Elliott. When I'm floating around the universe, I always try to tune in to Rob McConnell.
Hi, ho there, Twinkie Frog on Sesame Street. When I want to find out what's going on with UFOs or ghosts, I listen to the X Zone with Rob McConnell.
This is Les Corrigan from Target Internet Development. You're listening to Rob McConnell on the X Zone Radio Show.
This is John Hogue, prophecy scholar, and you're listening to Rob McConnell in the X Zone.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. You're listening to us around the world on the Starcom Radio Network. 800-610-7035 is our toll-free number. Email xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. If you'd like to send me an email in studio during the show, the email is on air at xzoneradiotv.com. That's on air at xzoneradiotv.com. And on all social media sites, xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is MUFON Canadian Deputy National Director Stu Bundy. And Stu, do you think the governments of the world, including the Canadian government, is suppressing the information about UFOs and that there is, in fact, a truth embargo out there? What did I do with Stu? Don't tell me. Craig, let me figure this one out on my own. All right, Stu, are you still there? Stu, are you there? Calling Stu. Stu, are you there?
Hello.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yes.
I thought that you might have been abducted by aliens.
No, not that I know of. I haven't had the that pleasure yet.
You haven't woken up after having an anal probe, have you? I mean, besides a colonoscopy.
No.
Hey, you know that's an interesting thought. Maybe the aliens taught the medical community how to do a colonoscopy. Huh. I'll have to ask my doctor that one.
They'd save some money on the anesthetics, I imagine, because apparently they can just put you under with their brains.
Really? Have you talked to anyone here in Canada who believes they have been abducted by the ETs?
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, something I did want to mention that we're going to really sort of turn our program at the Alien Cosmic Expo over to a new subject. We're going to talk mostly about sightings over Canada, etc., and we are going to do that. We're going to talk about the hotspots and what the latest sightings are, but we're going to really sort of turn our directions towards this abductee or experiencer. Her name is Emily Trim, and she was involved in the Rua, Zimbabwe experience. And what happened? This was back in 1994, September 16th, at the Ariel School, and there's 200 kids there. 62 of the kids saw this silver disc land in their schoolyard. Two beings come out and telepathically speak with them. Emily was one of them. Her parents worked for the Salvation Army, and they were there on a mission. And then, a few months after what happened, they packed up and came back to Canada.
Right.
So Emily had met one of our MUFON field investigators last year at the MUFON conference, which is her first conference she ever went to. She just wanted to see what was going on. That they hit it off, and now his name is Luigi Venditelli, and he's been working with Emily for the last year and a half. Emily is going to come to the symposium, to the expo. She is going to come up on stage. We're going to do a presentation on what has happened to her. and she's going to do a Q&A with the audience. So we're really excited about that. I spoke with her a couple of months ago in Toronto at another event. It was one of the Disclosure Tour events, that David Whitehead and Chris Rusak put on, and it was great. And she came there and met her. She seemed very nice. Her story is, and the other ones are just, it really is phenomenal, because this one fellow is doing a documentary, and his name is Randall Nickerson. He has tracked down 45 out of the 62 students, and has interviews with them and statements with them. John Mack was the first one on the scene back then, and he did shot a lot of film and interviews as well. So he really started the ball rolling. But Randall Nickerson is working on this documentary. In fact, his website is called arielphenomenon.com, and Ariel is spelled A-R-I-E-L, phenomenon.com. And if you go to fundraising, they're still trying to raise another $50,000 to finish off this documentary, and they believe it's really important, because
let me ask you something. Let me just interject something here. How come this story was never picked up by any credible news agency? It's just the UFO crowd that picked up this story.
Yeah, that is a great question, and that's something that Victor Vigiani, for example, expounds upon about how the media is controlled by the cabal, if you will, and the big media outlets squash stories. And I believe this is one of the ones that was squashed.
Is it possible it's not a matter of squashing the story? It's the fact that major media, all their major news outlets, vet their stories, credify them. Make sure that what these people are saying is actually legitimized.
Absolutely. And I worked for 12 years in television and radio, and that's exactly what we did. But I also knew that the old adage, if it bleeds, it leads.
That's right.
That's and tomorrow you are chopped liver. So they'll use you and throw you out in the trash because something else comes along. Or if it's a slow news day, then they'll use you.
Yeah.
But with this, though, they have so many people that have the same consistent story. It's undeniable that something happened. And the message that they were given telepathically, and they all said this, was that you are harming your planet, and you will destroy yourselves through technology if you continue on this path. And the crazy thing about Emily is that she is still being contacted, even in Toronto. So for her to come out and finally go public and want to talk about this, she feels compelled that she has to tell, spread this message. So whether or not you believe her, whether or not believe the 62 kids that have the same story and the same sighting, that's why it's important, I believe, to get this documentary finished, because that whole week in Zimbabwe, it was just not one sighting. It was a hot spot. There were multiple sightings.
All right, but let's look at the possibility. I remember hearing a story during World War II where the Marines landed on an island that had never seen a helicopter. The story is paralleled.
Sure.
So could this be a case that what the kids really saw was something that they had never seen before, whether it be a UFO from Alpha Centauri or being a helicopter from some other part of Africa?
Well, these were not tribal kids. These were, this was an elementary school. It's 1994. It's not that long ago. Everybody knows what a helicopter is. Everyone's seen helicopters. So I don't think that's what it is. It's just too many stories, the same story, and incredible people. There were kids there, but there were also adults, and that's why it's this to me is a very, very solid story. And the other one, if I can just jump in here, that we're working on is in a place called Saint Adolphe, just north of Montreal. It's an hour north of Montreal in the Laurentians. And what's going on up there is the last couple of years there's been strange lights, strange movement. We have video. We have photographic evidence of this. This is big in the Quebec media. Mm-hmm. It has not gotten any traction in the rest of the country. I don't know why, but again, Luigi Venditelli, he's our Montreal field investigator. He's been working on this. The strange thing is these lights are seen very close to an old NORAD base. It's called the Saint Adolphe. Well, it was called the Saint Adolphe NORAD base. It's closed down. Luigi's been there a couple of times. There's an old building. There's no gates. You can just drive in and drive out. He's done all sorts of investigating. Mm-hmm. Talked to the locals. When I was up there 2 years ago, I missed the lights by one night. We camped out there in the winter at this fellow's house who is the main witness. He and his son see them all the time. Then all the locals would come by and we'd sit them down, and I'd need to, Luigi would translate for me because my Quebec isn't all that, my French is not all that great. And they start telling stories about, it goes back decades now in this area. So there are all sorts of explanations going around. If it were aliens, what are they doing? Are they mining certain minerals from the Laurentian Mountains? Things like this. So we don't know, but what we do know is it's not conventional, and it's really, really strange. So Luigi's going to update us at the expo on the Saint Adolphe sightings as well. But this Emily Trim story is going to be the big one for us.
All right, when looking at
yes, spoken with her. But the other one, sorry, I don't want to cut you off here. But when you said, have you spoken to people? 2 weeks ago we had a local Brantford, Ontario meeting, and our field investigator there, Bob Mitchell, just finished a book called Intrusion. He just wrote his last book, was called Intrusion, and one of the ladies featured there is a deaf woman. And the story of her experiences and abductions and her fear and terror is quite compelling. The most compelling to me was she had her husband with her, and the last incident, the last experience, he was taken and not her. So listening to their stories at the meeting was fascinating. And so, I've met and talked to a few people, and some are credible, and unfortunately, some I don't find credible.
Where do you draw the line between credible and woo-woo?
Yeah, well, it's sitting down with them and talking. Mm-hmm. That's the big one, and trying to get a string of facts together, a statement. One of the things we have in our field manual training guide is to get their story, then go backwards through it with them. It's an old FBI trick, and then start in different places in the story and try and catch them. Try and get them to mess up. And if their story is consistent, if they seem credible, if you don't think there's any kind of mental illness, well then you might have something.
Interesting. Now, the story you were telling us about Saint Adolphe Tower in Quebec, that was carried by a large number of the Canadian media. Sudbury carried it, the Toronto Star carried it, St. Catharines Standard carried it. It seemed that it was a one-hit wonder story.
Correct, and that was I believe that was 2 years ago with
in January 2014. Yeah. January 2014.
Right, okay, so almost a year and a half ago. Yeah. So that was the reason that got some traction, was because the photos they did get that night, they actually had a journalist from Montreal up there, and it's hit and miss to get for those sightings. But they lucked out, and the journalist was there. He saw it with his own eyes, and that's where the story really got some traction. So it's continuing, it's ongoing. To me, that's the biggest story in Canada right now.
Listen, you're going to be at the Alien Cosmic Expo, June 26, 27, 28 in Brantford, Ontario. What would you like to tell the listening audience of the Expo Nation? Yeah, they're thinking about Montreal, the Montreal Expos. The X-Zone Nation around the world. What should they do if they believe they see a UFO? What should they do?
Go to our website, MUFON.com. That's our big, main international website. Click on Report a UFO, put in your sighting, whether it's from 1977 or whether it was 5 minutes ago. It all goes into our database. We'll put an investigator on the case. We'll take a look at it. But it does help us, sort through everything, collect reports, and sort of really get a handle on what's going on. So please go to MUFON.com and put in your sighting report because, we do take it seriously.
Stu, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. I like the way your head is screwed on. And I don't say that to a lot of people.
I appreciate that.
I don't say that to a lot of people. But I like the way that you came across, and I like the way that you answered me. So thanks very much, Stu. Take care of yourself. Keep the great work up.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, Exo Nation, my guest of this hour was Stu Bundy, the Canadian Deputy Director for MUFON. Isn't that neat? We had Paul Hellyer on the first hour. He is the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada under Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Or was it Lester B. Pearson? I think it was, whatever. And then we just finished talking to the Deputy Director of MUFON for Canada, Stu Bundy. Wow. Things are looking up here in the old X-Zone. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to give you a little hint about my next guest. His name is Michael Telstar. I've had the pleasure of talking to Michael and meeting with him many times. He's a great guy, and I'm going to tell you something. He, too, is going to be at the Alien Cosmic Expo in Brantford, Ontario, June 26, 27, 28. Brantford is, Brantford's about a 20-minute drive from Hamilton. It's not very far from London, Ontario. It's not very far from Buffalo, New York. It's not very far from Niagara Falls, Ontario. It's not very far from Toronto. So wherever you're listening to, you have a way of being there. And you're probably saying, Rob, I live in London. How in the heck can I be at this Alien Expo, Alien Cosmic Expo that you're talking about? It's very simple. You're going to be able to watch it on TV. For more information, go to www.aliencosmicexpo.com. Now, I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and worldwide on the Starcom Radio Network and Simul TV. Don't go away.